Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Brittany B.A. Franck. I am an indie author and I own an online bookstore that specializes in surprise book dates, and I'm also a serial hobby collector. So on this channel, again, if you're new here, you'll be seeing lots of hobbies, including gardening and writing and baking and knitting and sewing and all the good things, all the fun things, all the slow things. Welcome back to another episode of let's see if Brittany can write this monstrosity of a novel that she's working on. Right now it is, my swivel chair is swiveling a little too much. Right now it is a little after 7 in the morning. It is June 1st and I am officially beginning on the second half of my novel, or my duology. I believe that is where we left off last month. I said I was actually going to be writing a duology. I put it out there. Who knows if it'll change? I am currently working on the second part. Last month, or even last week, last Friday, I was just diving into chapter 1 of part 2, and I was getting really excited about it. Not what my main character is going through. I feel really bad for her, but I was diving in and I am going to pick up where I left off, starting with that chapter 1 and just going through this next sequence of events that is going to transpire for my character. And I mean, I'm getting a little bit of a late start this morning. It is after 7. I'm going to try and talk through this really quickly so I have more writing time. However, I was sitting in bed thinking about my average word count per week and the goals that I like to hit. Usually I try to go for about 1,000 words a day minimum. Sometimes this changes, sometimes it's way less, sometimes it's way more, but usually I want an average about 1,000 words a day, which means 5,000 words a week. So doing the math, that means 20,000 words a month, right? 5, 10, 15, 20, 20,000 words a month. How many months is that? So if I'm only doing about 20,000 words a month and this second half becomes just as big as the first half, which ended at 155,000 words, that means that this next half is going to take me at least another 6 months of working on this first draft. And even if this becomes 2 separate books, I am writing it as if it's one, because there are so many things that kind of interweave between each other, and I want to be able to drop hints about the second half of the book in the first half of the book. So I really do need to have the full picture ready before I go into editing. And so I'm just I really did think that maybe if I was really good, I could publish by next year, maybe 2028. But this is looking this goal is looking very lofty. It's not looking realistic at all. That is a bit of a bummer because my last novel was published in 2023 and I'm just looking at the distance between the 2 novels and their publication, and it's just growing. The gap is growing wider and wider, and I have nothing out there, any other stories out there. But that's just the way of the creative, I think. And of course, I can't talk about creativity and being an artist and being a writer without talking about everything that's happening in AI and talking about the fact that it really is putting a strain on traditional authors, traditional in the sense of we write everything ourselves. We don't use AI. And so in case you didn't know, I use absolutely no AI in anything. I don't really believe in AI outside of perhaps the medical industry, where I think that it would be the most useful, the most beneficial to humankind. There's just too much of an environmental impact with AI that I don't believe in. And as an environmental steward, as a sustainability person who has been in the eco field for over a decade. I really don't believe in using AI on a personal level. That's just my belief. And I really don't like how companies are kind of forcing it down our throats. I don't like that I stopped using Google a while ago, but I really don't like how Google recently transferred everything into being entirely AI. I don't know if by the time this video comes out that will have changed back from backlash, but I'm not into it. And I really don't believe that AI has any place in art. I think that art should be human led entirely. I think that Photoshop and things like that where humans are manipulating the technology is a different thing, but when it comes to book writing and art and things of that nature, like you will never see me using AI. I don't even use it to research or outline, anything like that. Like everything is just the struggle of my brain onto the page. And why would I want to outsource that? Because as much of a struggle as it is, I enjoy the aspect of writing. Like I really do. It's really fun, even if it is a pain in my ass sometimes. You'll never see an AI cover for me. I hire artists to work on my covers for Daisy and Lily's Valley. I actually hired an artist who hand painted the cover because I love a good painted cover. I love that texture. And Jordan did such a good job. Like this is the cover of my dreams. So thank you so much, Jordan, for all of your hard work. And I plan to do the exact same thing with my next book. I already have an idea in mind, and I've already been talking to an artist about it too, so very excited. Anyway, off of my tangent of AI, let's get back to the writing. So it is probably a little past, I don't even know, sometime past 7. My phone is being used to record. I should probably dive in because I'm never going to reach the goal if I don't start. I hope that you're excited to come along with me for this second month of writing this Project Magic piece, and let's see how far I get. Fingers crossed. All right, take 3. I swear I've tried this 3 different times this morning and my mic wasn't working, and so hopefully it's working now. Yeah, so anyway, good morning everyone. It is Wednesday, June the 3rd, and I'm coming back to you so early in the month because it has been a little bit of a slow start. I have really been struggling to get words to the page, words to the computer screen, and I don't know, I'm hoping that it doesn't continue this way. Yesterday, I know I didn't get much done because it was such a busy day. We were out and about a lot, and I saw a friend for breakfast, so I really only had about 30 minutes or so in which to write. And I did get about 1,500 words down on Monday, which was great, but I am still in chapter 1. I'm still in the opening scene of the second part of this duology. I'm just gonna own up to it. It's just gonna be a duology it's gonna be a duology in my mind from now on. And then this morning, I, of course, didn't want to get out of bed because it felt so good. It's so chilly this morning. I had to pull out my sweater, my favorite sweater, and I love it. I'm here for it. However, in the winter months, which is what this feels like fall and winter, this is what I'm feeling right now at 55 degrees. I tend to not write in the mornings. I will write more in the afternoons when I've woken up. I'll do a really slow morning with tea, coffee, reading, something like that. And then I'll get into work later in the day. And so it's just throwing me off a little bit, this weather, because usually in the summers I can get straight out of bed because my bed does not feel that great. It's way too hot for me and I want to get moving. It was just a very challenging getting out of bed this morning, especially because we opened up all of the windows in our bedroom and it was a cool, crisp 55 degrees. It just felt so comfortable cuddling in bed and being like, I'm gonna burrow in here forever. So I haven't done any writing this morning. It is now 8:30. I originally recorded this at 7:30 twice. Neither of them worked. But basically what I was saying in those first two attempts was that this morning I am really planning on taking it slow, basking in this coolness, because who knows how long it's going to last, especially now that we're in June and it's 55 degrees. I'm just now realizing that this weather is absolutely wild. While it's cool, I am going to bask in it. I am going to take advantage of it. And this morning, I am going to read a couple of books, or maybe just one. I don't know. We'll see. And then for the rest of the day, I have marked off that I am just going to be working on my newsletter. Now, my newsletter does take quite a bit of mental energy. And so I do expect it will take a couple of hours for me to do this. But I am hoping that I can possibly get it done by lunchtime. That would be ideal, just so that I can take a break and then come back to writing this afternoon. That would be awesome. Maybe get in 2 writing sessions before dinner, possibly 3. Oh, I wish. Inevitably, the newsletter always takes a lot longer than I expect it to because I pour a lot of myself into it each month. And because it's a monthly newsletter, I only do it once a month and I'm really trying to catch up on everything. If you're not subscribed to my newsletter, that's totally fine. But if you want to be, here's a little taste of what it's like. Basically, I update everyone on, what has been going on in my life, from writing to gardening to everything in between. And it's kind of I've had it described to me by those who reply to my messages, which I love. If you are a newsletter subscriber, please feel free to respond at any time. I love talking to everyone, but I've had it described to me as if a friend is sending you a letter in the mail. And I really love that. I'm glad that that is kind of the vibe that my newsletter gives, because I want it to be cozy. I want it to be like a friend is talking to you, because I do feel like a lot of us are friends. I just want it to be very comforting and hopefully informative in some way, or inspiring, or just leave you with a lot of good feelings about life, because life can be really challenging, especially now. And I just feel like we need a little bit more hope instilled in the world, a little bit more joy and positivity, and showing that things can be different. We can build a better world just one day at a time, one small act of kindness at a time. So that is my plan for today. I don't know why I did this with my hand, but I just got very excited. That is my plan for today. I'm going to write this newsletter, but beforehand, because I was filming and it failed twice this morning, I lost half an hour. And so I haven't been able to read much. So I think now that it is still only 8:30, maybe 8:40 by the time that I finish talking, I'm going to read some. I'm going to sip on my Dandy Blend tea. If you don't know, I cannot drink much coffee anymore, even though I absolutely adore coffee. I love the ritual of it. I love how comforting it is, how heavy, full-bodied coffee is. I love it, but it does not agree with me. It's too acidic for me, so I have taken to switching most days to either tea or this Dandy Blend, which this isn't sponsored. Dandy Blend just happens to be the one tea blend that I was recommended by a friend last year, and it is the closest coffee substitute I have been able to find that does not hurt my stomach. It feels much more robust than tea, and Arlen actually describes it kind of like a watered down caramel latte, which I will take it. There's no sweetener in it, but it does kind of give that vibe. So I love it. I add a little bit of cacao into it, like a teaspoon or two, and it really is the perfect morning companion. It gives me that ritual and that wholesomeness of like, I don't know how to describe it. If you're a coffee drinker, I think you know what I mean though. So I am drinking that, and I am going to get back into reading. I have a couple books to choose from, but first off, I wanted to talk about a little bit. This is the book that I read last night. I finished, and I didn't like it. I feel really bad, but it did not live up to what I was hoping it would, but I'm going to talk more about that in a wrap-up video. So The Art of X-Ray Reading, I found this by chance at the library, and it sounded really interesting, so I picked it up, but when I started reading it a few days ago, I don't know if I've picked this book up at the wrong time or if it might not be for me. It just wasn't landing. So I'm going to give it another chapter or two before I decide whether or not to DNF it. It's just a very interesting concept though about X-ray reading, because I really do want to get more into deciphering what is going on between the lines of the page. And then I'm still reading Anna Karenina as well. This is going to be a long one. It's going to take me a while. It has been about a month since I've picked it up, and so I'm trying to get back into it, but I've only gotten about 100 pages into this 800-page book, and it's slow going because I'm also annotating while I'm reading, but I do dig it. I am digging it so far, and I really am wanting to read this so that I can watch the movie, because the movie is highly recommended to me by my best friend who has seen it, loved it. She says that it gives very like theatrical vibes, and being that we were both in theater, I am highly interested in that. I love seeing theatrical adaptations for film and seeing how that all works. So I really do want to continue reading this, and I'm always curious, like, what makes a classic? And so far, I'm not entirely sure what makes this classic, but I do think it's well written. And for like an 800-page book, it is keeping me very interested. So I'm going to go pick one of these books, read for a little bit, then dive into the newsletter, and then hopefully this afternoon, I will be writing again.
Bring me into golden sunlight. If I'm going with you, I know we'll get to the other side. Sinking in, I know this feels right. Catching a breeze, love moving through me like a wildfire, like a wildfire. Never the same. Whenever you call my name, I'm taking my sweet time. Hey, whatever the plan, I know I'm holding the best of me out of my hand. I know you always understand. Bring me into golden sunlight. If I'm going with you, I know we'll get to the other side. Sinking in, I know this feels right. Catching a breeze, love moving through me like a wildfire, like a wildfire. Oh.
Good morning. So we are currently about halfway through the month of June, and I just want to pop on to give a little writing update as far as how writing has been going for me this month. So we started out strong from what I can recall. I will know, I haven't edited the video back, so I honestly don't remember how we started out, but I feel like it was strong. And now we're halfway through and things are starting to slow down, but it's for a very specific reason. And so that reason has everything to do with the fact that I am heading into the second part of this novel / duology, and I feel lost. I feel very lost. I have a plethora of scene ideas or half-baked scenes that I know will make it into the final novel. They are very important. They have been with me since the very beginning. However, I don't know how to string those individual scenes together, especially because so many of them are flashbacks in my character's life and really explain like the depth of why she is the way that she is right now in a way that the first half of the novel kind of touched on but didn't go deep into, because she has been like actively repressing these memories, and then there's an event that happens that brings everything to the surface. And so one, I have no idea how to get to that event. I know where I am and like some of the next few steps in front of me, but I don't actually know how to transition from what is happening in her life to the next event. And then once I get to that event, I'm not sure how to interweave the flashbacks with the present day, because it's pretty equal, I feel, as far as like how many flashbacks there are matching with what is going on in present day. And I almost want to play with the structure of the story a little bit so that for the reader, it might be confusing. I almost want to play with that confusing aspect, because when you experience trauma and it comes back to you because something is triggering it in the present day, you really can't separate yourself from the past. It feels, especially if you have PTSD in some way, shape, or form, it really feels to the body as if it is happening right here, right now. You cannot distinguish between the two. And so I really do want to play with that a little bit. However, I have no idea what road to take. Like, I just don't know. I have finished chapter 2 and I haven't written since. So I did not write yesterday, which felt really, really weird, but I do believe that I just need to take a pause. So I downloaded a beat sheet from Jamie Gold's website, and I talk about this in another video that I don't know if it'll be up now or later, but basically I talk about this in another video in which I'm talking about the structure of a novella that I am working on. And so I did go back to Jamie Gold's website, and they have a variety of different beat sheets that you can kind of look through. Some are character based or character driven, some are plot driven. There's the Save the Cat beat sheet, there's romance driven beat sheets. The one that called out to me the most was Larry Brooks's story structure. It felt a little bit better than the Save the Cat beat sheet, because even though like with the Daisy and Lily's Valley, I did start with the Save the Cat beat sheet, but it quickly, like after the second act, I felt like the Save the Cat didn't actually pertain to my story, the story that I was trying to tell. And so Larry Brooks' story structure seems to be the closest to what I'm going for, although I'm sure that I'll deviate because, like I said in the other video, these are great roadmaps and tools to use in writing, but I don't actually subscribe to the whole like you have to stay within this line and it has to happen at exactly this point and da 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 da, because where's the fun in that? You know, I think that there's good in having a little bit of variety, a little bit of deviation. So what I do like about this is the fact that each of these beat sheets is an Excel spreadsheet, and you can actually type in your intended word count and it'll give you what the expected page count will be, as well as break down each and every part and milestone into an approximate page number instead of like the whole percentage, like, oh, this needs to happen between 1 and 10%. I really like knowing that there's like a page in which I can kind of be hovering around if I were to stick strictly to this. So for the rest of today, and actually the rest of this week, I think what I'm going to be doing is really pausing on the writing itself. Oh, I need to sneeze. Don't. I started allergy drops recently. It's basically giving my body allergens. And so my body is like fighting back. It really wants to have sneezing fits every single day. So yeah, for the rest of this week, I am going to work on fleshing out more of my character breakdowns because I haven't actually finished that. I did start it last month or so, and I've always held in my brain ideas of who these characters are, but I really like getting into the nitty-gritty and knowing what their individual motivations are because I feel like it helps me hone in on what their actual voice is, their individual voice, as well as their motivations and how they would react. There's especially one character at the end of the first part of this book that I struggled with defining, like what their motivations are, how they would react. And so every time they opened their mouth to speak, I felt like the dialogue was just very forced, and I want to fix that. So I'm going to work on doing this beat sheet, structuring out what the second part of this book is going to look like, and then also doing the character breakdowns. And I mean, this is a lot of like high level brain work, I guess, because I'm really looking at the overarching structure and having to make a lot of decisions. So I want to spend the rest of this week, even though it is already Thursday, I'll spend the rest of this week into the weekend kind of going over this stuff at hopefully an even pace. I hope. That's where we're at. That's what I'm going to be doing. And then hopefully by next week or even like mid next week, I can actually start writing again, diving into the story. And if not, my novella is waiting. This is the first time that I am actually tackling two projects at once. I have not started the novella, but I did map it out. And so I am ready to dive in. And I think it is going to provide a great place for me to continue the writing practice so that I don't get that fear of diving back into this story the way that I seem to every single time I take a break from writing at all. So I'm gonna go get to it then. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay. So this afternoon went better than I could have expected. So let me grab the thing. So originally I said that I would be using Larry Brooks's story structure in regards to mapping out the second half of my story. However, I actually started doing this and I set a timer for about 15 minutes before I had to go and get ready for lunch. And I started mapping it out and everything was going well and good until I came back after lunch and I started getting past part 2 of this worksheet. And unfortunately, if you can see, it is a very shortened worksheet. And I was starting to feel like I needed a little bit more points in between to really map out this story because again, it is super complex, at least in my mind. It feels so ever looming. I went back to Jamie Gold's website and I wound up picking out and printing out this other worksheet, which is actually, it says it's the master story planning worksheet. So yeah, it is Larry Brooks's, what I had originally, his worksheet combined with the Save the Cat worksheet. And this one, oh my gosh, is so much better. So I wound up setting a timer just to see, or like starting a stopwatch just to see how long mapping out my entire second story would take. And if I include the 15 minutes that I had done prior to eating, it took me about an hour and 15 minutes to actually map everything out. And so there are literally 7 pages here. So I'm going to show you the back of it so that I don't give anything away. But there are 7 beautiful pages of information. And oh my gosh, writing, especially as I got to the end, I was really feeling it. You know, I was getting so excited. I was starting to like, oh my gosh, see the puzzle pieces coming together in a way that I hadn't expected and in a way that I absolutely needed. And so I am just feeling so good about this story now and the direction in which I'm going. And like, I have a roadmap. And so I have a corkboard in my office that has like all of the scene ideas that are in my mind. And now I can actually go through that and put it up against everything that I've written for my beat sheet and my 3-act structure. And I can compare the two and really combine them and move things around in a way that will make writing every single day so much easier. So much easier. But honestly, I just can't explain how freaking excited I am. Like, so tickled with how well this worked and how much clarity it brought for this second storyline. And I wish I had done this for the first part of the story, because I really feel like it would have actually saved me a lot of time and trouble and like struggling through the muddy waters of what it was that I was trying to do, because I understood the overarching of like part 1 of the story, but it was a slog. It was a slog trying to get from point A to the end point. So yeah, I'm just tickled. I think that I will wind up, for when I go into editing the part 1, I will probably do a reverse outline just to see if I'm hitting all of the emotional beats that I want to, all of the plot points that I want to meet, and cutting out anything that feels superfluous. But I'm feeling really good. I mean, this feeling probably won't last once I go into the actual writing, but right now I'm on cloud 9. And yeah, I'm excited to see what the rest of this month brings.
But you think you're doing it wrong. High pressure underground. Your body's on time, made it. Body's on time, made it. Pretty pictures. Bring me into golden sunlight.
Good morning. So right now it is, I forgot if it was June or July for a second. Right now it's Monday, June 15th, and it's around 8:30 in the morning. And this morning is the first day in about a week since I've last written. So I think that last week I mentioned that I paused in my writing so that I could really get an idea of where it was that I was going with the second part of Project Magic. And I'm really glad that I did that instead of pushing through, because I feel like if I had pushed through, I would have just kind of been like stumbling along, really not knowing exactly where I'm going, and I probably would have gotten a lot of false starts and been much more frustrated with this process. But because I took last week to really hone in on what it was that I was trying to say in this story and where it was that I was going, I think that that has set me up for being able to dive back into this world and to really write the story that it is that I want to write, which is great. And it's really great. And so I did get started today, and along with all of this writing stuff, I'm also reevaluating not writing as a practice. Writing for me is incredibly important. However, I have been recently hyper focused on writing to the extent that everything else in my life doesn't feel as important, or I'm like treating it less importantly. And I don't want that. I did that with A Daisy in Lily's Valley, but it was at a time in which I absolutely needed to have something grounding me, to have a daily practice that I came to and like focused my whole heart and soul on. And I'm glad that I had that. However, my life is different now. It's 3 years later and things are different. And so as much as I love the idea of having that singular focus, I don't want to neglect the other important aspects of my life. I also am working right now on a big business foundation revamp. So it's really not anything that will be majorly different on the surface of my brand. But if you don't know, I own an online bookstore and I sell surprise book dates and I do like markets throughout the year. Nothing on the surface is really changing, but I am going through this whole behind the scenes revamping of the foundations and laying out structures that are really healthy and more sustainable. And so that's equally as important to me as writing is. And so is, time spent with my friends and my family and my cats. It's just me trying to find this balance in life that I have always struggled with. And I think that I've always struggled with it because I haven't had the proper tools to implement what it is that I want my life to look like. I've always had this idea, and that's not to say that I don't love my life right now. Like I really do. I'm very grateful for the things that I have and the work that I'm able to do. However, I think that as humans, we're always kind of striving to go move forward and we're striving for different goals on the horizon. And so I've always had specific goals as far as what my life would look like and more importantly, how I would feel moving through life. And that really is an energetic shift that I have struggled to capture. I really hope that I'm not sounding for future Brittany, that I'm not sounding too all over the place because I feel very scattered right now. It all made sense this morning. So I've always had this idea of what it is that I'd like my life to feel like. A lot of that includes having balance in my life, and I have always been one to struggle with balance. As you can see with this project, I was going like full force, wanting to write 1,500 words a day, which is not terrible, but that is a lot. And sometimes I'd even try and surpass that and get to like 2,000, 3,000 because I really want to see the end of this project done. Part of that is because I'm an Aries, I'm impatient, and I like to have things finished. It just soothes my brain to have tasks, like checked off. But another part of it is that I was equating the goal as the main thing, as like the end all be all, when with writing, it really is about the journey. And I was forgetting that because I was like, no, I need to get this goal done. I need to finish this book so that I can get it out into the world, because that's another part. I get very frustrated at the fact that I'm the only one living with this story in my head and that you don't get to see it yet. And so I'm like, oh, I have to be faster. I have to get it out there so that people can read it. And honestly, I think that that's just my ego talking. I'm just going back to this. I'm trying to bring it back. I'm trying to fall back to writing is, yes, very important, but the process is going to take the time that it takes and it's going to be beautiful regardless. And I don't need to rush it. Rushing it is going to only make it not as good as it could be. And so I actually have this book called Slow by Brooke McAllery, and I have read this book cover to cover so many times and I absolutely love it. She does talk about balance, but in a very different way to what other people I've seen have talked about balance. And I really appreciated how she lays out the journey of her own life towards slower, more intentional living. And all of these ideas inside her book have always resonated with me. I've had this for a couple of years. I've sticky tabbed it. I've like written notes in the margins, highlighted it, all of that. But I've never been able to really implement any of the changes into my life. And I think that it's because until this year, I haven't had the tools by which to implement them. Like I understood the concepts logically, conceptually, like in my brain, but I didn't have the toolbox in which to draw from to implement them. And I think that I do now, which is awesome and I think it has a lot to do with what's happening with me in my business, because surprisingly, my business actually requires a huge emotional journey that I was not anticipating, and it is rewriting so many of the narratives that I didn't realize I was like gripping onto, holding onto in my subconscious. And so I think that through that work, it's actually helping me with writing as well. At least, again, nothing really is changing on the outside, but on the inside, everything's shifting. And I think that's the most important. Anyway, today has been a good day for writing. I dove back in. I wrote about 1,000 words, a little bit less, like around 900, and it wasn't perfect, but I started, which is great because Mondays are always notoriously super hard for me because I take the weekends off, and I'm just excited to see where this story is going to go. And I do believe that I also mentioned that I started a new project called Project Truth. Forgot what it was called for a second. I plan to do a little bit more play in that project. I plan to intermix it with Project Magic because Project Magic is going to take a really long time, and Project Truth is sitting on the tip of my tongue, and I'd like to get the bones of it put to paper. I already have like the first sentence came to me over the weekend, and I thought it was really funny and surprising, and I'm excited to explore this character more deeply. It is a character from A Daisy and Lily's Valley that I'm exploring. They're like earlier life, and so I don't know, I'm just very intrigued by it. I just love all the characters. I think that's my favorite part, is getting to know these characters as people and what it is that's going on in their life and following them through everything. I don't know, it's just gonna be a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm not planning on writing anymore today, but I am planning on doing some journaling exercises because it is a new moon today, and I'm excited to see what happens in the coming 2 weeks. I'm going to set some intentions out there, and hopefully by the end of the month, I'll have lots of fun things to share with you. I don't know if I'll pop in again, but we'll see. We'll see. If there's something interesting for me to say, I'll definitely pop in. So it is currently June 24th, and it's almost 8 in the morning, which is why it's so dark in here. But I just thought that, I'd come on to talk because a lot has been on my mind this morning, especially with regards to writing. So yeah, this morning I sat in bed after my alarm went off, and I sat there for like 30 minutes not wanting to get up and write. And this is the third day this week that has happened, and it's Wednesday, which means that every single day this week I've woken up and not wanted to write. And I was just kind of trying to think through why that might be, because I've been feeling this kind of way for a minute. And it's so weird because last week I remember being really excited about writing, but also struggling to pull the actual words out of my brain. Like I was excited about the scenes that I was doing, but struggling to work on them. And now each day I'm struggling to want to work on this project, but the words keep falling out. Today I thought that I was going to get up and work on something else, but I sat down and I was reading over my bullet points of what this next scene is in need of, and all of a sudden I just had the start of a part of the scene, and I began writing, and I wound up writing only 424 words, but that's more words than I was anticipating writing this morning. So I just wanted to talk about, I guess, a little bit of what I think might be happening with me right now. A lot of it I think has to do with the fact that there's just a lot going on in my life, especially in my business life. And I think that is kind of messing with my writing. I think that somehow, even though I try so hard not to take on too much at any given moment, I feel as if I am taking on too much. And I'm trying to figure out, this is what I was thinking about this morning, is whether or not I'm actually taking on too much, or if my brain is trying to convince me that I'm taking on too much. Right now, I'm going through this massive overhaul of my business at a foundational foundational structural level. And I am doing like a whole video series on that, which I don't think will be out by the time this video comes out, but when it is, I will link it here if you want to check that out. But with that, I have been watching a lot of Jamie C's videos, and she talks a lot about the fact that when you are trying to expand in any portion of your life, your body's main job, your nervous system's main job, and your subconscious's main job is to keep you not necessarily small, but it's to keep you safe. And in doing so, it does unintentionally keep you playing small. And so I'm starting to think that that's kind of what's going on, because she did talk about how it does this in sneaky ways. It does this, one, mainly by reaffirming the beliefs that you already have. And I know that for me, with regards to business, I have this belief that if I were to expand my business, if it was to get any bigger than it currently is, that I would have to sacrifice a lot. I'd have to sacrifice writing and things that I love, and my mental health and my physical health, and just time in general. I do believe that that is exactly what's playing out here. My brain is just trying to find reasons that this is true, in so much as right now I have a very full plate. Because of this business restructuring, there is a lot going on. However, my brain is trying to equate this to this is how it's always going to be, even though logically I know that this is just temporary. This is an influx of work because the systems that I have in place are not sustainable. They're not conducive to actually growing a business, and they're very much like reactive. And so taking the time to make them less reactive, to make them actually integrate into my life a lot more easily, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time and it's going to take effort. But my brain is looking at it and being like, oh, look at all this extra work that you're doing. Look at the fact that you can't write for more than 40 minutes a day. Look at the fact that you're doing like 5 million things every single day. And that's been going on for the past 2 weeks. Yeah, I think that that's where it's showing up for me. And that's why writing has been a little bit of a challenge. Even though I am showing up every day and putting words on the page, my brain is seeing that there's not as much progress, and that my attention is split amongst like 3 or 4 different things every single day. And I'm only making small amounts of progress in each area rather than big leaps and bounds. It's just something that I'm noticing. It's just something that's interesting that has been coming up for me this week, and I'm not trying to like fix it or anything, although I did go into fix it mode this morning while sitting in bed. I just wanted to share that because yeah, I'm about to have to do I think I'm sharing this more for myself than anything else, because I'm about to sit down and look at the numbers for this month, and I think I'm going to be very disappointed in the fact that I haven't written very much, even though last month I finished the first part of my manuscript and now I'm on to part 2. Even though that has happened and that's such a great accomplishment, I'm just feeling, I think I'm going to feel a little disappointed in myself for not having pushed the needle further. But I'm here, Brittany, this is for you in the future, and for anyone who's writing and this happens to them as well. I have done a lot. I sat down and I plotted out the whole entire second part of my manuscript, and that alone was so helpful. That is going to cut out so much unnecessary like waffling and insecurity as to where I'm going with the book, and also just time, because I'm not going to fall down these like random rabbit hole paths. I have a much clearer focus, and it's already come in handy. I've already used it multiple times going forward. When I've gotten stuck, I've looked at my like beat sheet and found, oh, Brittany, this is what you should be looking at next. This is what you can be focusing on. Ooh, what about this scene? And it's been really, really helpful. And that all counts, even though it's not adding to my word count, it does count for actual progress. And I even plotted out an entire novella too. So that should be counted as well. Even though I haven't started it and it doesn't go towards this current word count, it is something. So I'm just here to remind you that every little bit counts, remind myself that every little bit counts, and that adding to a word count goal is not the end all be all for a project. And there are also times when things are moving forward very, very quickly. And then there are times when it's a little bit slower and you have to take stock. And that's because we're humans that are leading and living full lives. And we have lots of other things going on that isn't just writing. And it's not to say that writing isn't important, because it is. It's so important to us as creatives, as writers, as authors. It's a big part of our DNA, but that doesn't mean that it's going to happen every single day. It doesn't mean that it's going to look the same every single day. And, as I'm talking about this, I'm feeling a lot better. I'm feeling a lot lighter. So I really hope that this resonates with someone else out there. If it's happening to you, if you're feeling like you're beating yourself up in any sort of way, like, just know that it's okay. Like, you're going to be cool. It's going to be good. And we're going to get through this. And there are going to be other times where we're putting down 3,000 words in one day instead of just 400. And I'm just going to continue on. I'm going to go work. I finished my writing for today. It is now officially 8 o'clock. So I'm going to go have some of my tea with my husband. And then I'm going to come back, and I have to get monthly book subscriptions out this week, which I'm always super excited about. It's always a lot of fun. So I'm going to do that. And then this afternoon, I'm on to inventory, which sounds about as fun as it is. All right, I'm going to keep this as super quick as I possibly can, because this video is already almost an hour long. And if you have stuck with me this long, thank you. Thank you so much for listening to me talk about stuff. I would call it rambling, but even as I was watching back this video, I felt like there was a lot of stuff that I was talking about that if I saw a video like mine, I'd be interested. So I hope that it was all little nuggets of either inspiration or information that was beneficial in some way, positive in some way, added joy to your day, maybe. I don't know. But I don't want to keep you too much longer. So I'm just going to run through the numbers really quickly. Spoiler alert, they're about as low as I was expecting. Actually, a little bit higher than I thought I had done. So that's always a positive, right? So I have everything on my little sticky note right here because I can't remember this stuff by myself. So for this month, I wound up writing, for the month of June, I wound up writing 3.5-ish chapters and exactly 13,623 words. And that is pretty accurate. I actually fixed how I'm calculating these word counts. So this is the only word count. There's not two like last month. But aside from the hard and fast numbers and chapters that I wrote, there were also a few things that I talked about this month that were a little bit more ephemeral. And that included creating a beat sheet and mapping out the entire second half of Project Magic, plus doing the exact same thing for Project Truth, which is my novella that I have not started working on, but it is ready to go whenever I am feeling so inspired to do so. Like I said, this hasn't been the best writing month, but there's just so much going on in my life right now, and I'm trying really hard to not get down on myself for not writing as much as I did, say, last month or even the month before, or even the first 6 months of this year, because I was really sustaining a lot of energy writing this manuscript, or at least the first half, and it's already at 155,000 words, which is huge for a manuscript. And to have done that in 6 months, I deserve a pat on the back. I deserve to praise myself for what I have done. And yes, I am an impatient person, and yes, I really want everyone else to see the magic that is Project Magic. However, it's gonna take the time that it takes, and I just need to, fall back into that, not let my brain freak me out by being like, oh, Brittany, it all has to be done so much faster. Why aren't you going quicker? It's not possible, brain. I'm sorry. And it's more about the journey and, the actual writing of it. If I really did want it done, I would use some sort of shortcut, but that's just not me, because I really do enjoy the creation process of writing. It's just the most fun part. And it's the same with all of the other hobbies that I collect. I love the slow and intentional aspects of it. I loved it with sewing. I love it with baking. I love it with gardening, even though all of them, the slow aspects can really run kind of counterintuitive to that impatient nature of mine. But if anything, it's something that I absolutely need. I need to learn more patience in more aspects of my life. I had learned it in sewing, which I had done for over 15 years. I think I was nearing on 20 when I took a step back, and it really I did hone it very, very well in that area of my life. And I think I just, all right. So because I still use my iPhone as my primary recording device, I completely got cut off with that video, and I have no idea where I was because my phone said that its storage was full. I think I was talking about sewing and just patience in regards to that, and yeah, where it is leading me as far as with writing and just all of the slow going crafts and hobbies that I collect. I really need to learn patience in those areas, and I think that this is, just teaching me. This is the year of teaching me to be patient. My Aries nature does not like it, but you know what? It will help me. It will benefit me in the long run. Anyway, if you made it this far, thank you, first of all, for listening to this entire video. Please feel free to leave a comment below, and comment with maybe your favorite green emoji, just anything that kind of reminds you of the summer and gets you into that summer spirit. I really need a little bit of summer spirit sent my way because it is hot. It is going to be in the 90s, close to the hundreds next week, coupled with rain. And that is not a fun combination here in the South. So I am not looking forward to it. I need some motivation to get outside, especially in the mornings before, it gets into the hottest part of the day, even though it starts in the 80s when we wake up. I really do anticipate that this coming month, I will be writing a lot more just as a way to beat the heat. I am going to be sitting in some coffee shops or inside my house and just looking at the greenery from a safe distance. Yeah, I can't wait to show you what all I get into this coming month, and I guess I'll see you next month. Bye.